that, we do ask that you please feel free to utilize the chat box on Zoom. Any questions or comments you have for Coach, myself, anybody else, drop them in the chat box throughout. I'll be watching that. The difference on Zoom today is you do have the capability to turn your camera and microphone on and off throughout. You can keep your camera on or off as long as you'd like. We do ask that while Coach Hughes is talking or anybody else is talking, if you can, and it's easy for you, if you can mute your microphone at least, just so we don't have much feedback or anything else going through as we're talking. We do realize that as we get more and more people on these Zoom events, the more people that have their microphones on while somebody's talking, the more feedback will kind of get in the background. So if you could keep yourself muted while Coach or anybody else is talking or presenting, we'd really appreciate it. And with that, we will go ahead and get started. Like I said, I'll drop a few things in the chat box as we go. I will stop sharing that screen and get it back here. And I'll welcome Coach Hughes today. Thank you, Coach, for joining us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And then I know we had some questions submitted beforehand that I'll kind of get through. And then once Coach goes through what he wants to go through, we'll kind of open it up to the audience as well for any questions or comments. So I know one thing people were curious about, Coach, was when we got to that point in late February, early March, or later into March even, when we kind of had to decide that it was time to shut things down at Stetson for the spring. How was that communicated to you, and what was your and your staff's like initial reaction to hearing that?
This is a family show, right? Okay, I don't really, excuse me, want to talk about how I reacted, but you know, we had leading into our spring practice, you know, had communication with our athletic director, Jeff Altier, and he had indicated there were some concerns about what was going on in the NC2A with some of the tournaments. With the basketball tournament had indicated that, you know, it was getting pretty serious. I think our country was starting to take it a lot more seriously. And so literally we showed up for practice Saturday morning, and I got a phone call from Jeff Friday evening, probably around 10 o'clock at night. And he was trying to do everything in his power to allow us to keep going, allow the baseball team to keep practicing, the softball team. But at that point, he just felt like for the safety of the student athletes, we need to shut it down. And at that point, you know, we really didn't know how long the shutdown was going to last, how serious it was going to be. And then, of course, evolved into, you know, we're going to send the students home for their safety. So as coaches, you know, it's all about battlefield adjustments. I mean, every time we get into a game, sometimes they don't play the defense you expected. Sometimes they blitz a little bit more. Sometimes they run a no-huddle offense when you weren't expecting that. And so we're all about battlefield adjustments. Probably the biggest thing that I missed, not in addition to the football and being with the kids, obviously, was, you know, we always do a lot of alumni receptions during the month of April, May, and early part of June. And it gives us, our program, a chance to connect to parents, alumni, friends of the program all over the country. And that's probably as important and what I missed as much as being around the kids the whole time we were there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then building off of that, so once you got that news and had to, you know, accept that that was the reality, that the spring season was just kind of canceled and done with, how did you and your staff and team then transition into what we're doing now? How did you keep everybody involved? How do you still communicate with everybody as much as you can? How did you kind of adapt to all that?
Well, in football, you're always dealing with actually two different teams, the one you're coaching now and then the one you're trying to recruit for the next season. And so we had to do a two-prong effect. Luckily, I've got a strength coach named Mark Wateska and his staff. They started putting together, okay, if kids go home, this is the workout. All of our workouts are web-based, so they can get them right on their cell phone. And we were pretty confident that our guys would be ready to go and get that done. Then we found out that the gyms were going to close all over, so now guys don't have weights. And so Mark actually designed a body weight type workout, push-ups, set-ups, pull-ups, that type stuff, so guys could keep in shape, and designed a running program for them to utilize at areas where they could still social distance and still try to stay in some form of fitness. On the recruiting side, you know, we were banned from travel, and generally that's the time, you know, really with spring recruiting, we can't talk to the players at that time. So what you do want to do, though, is you want to go out and eyeball them, because a lot of times coaches will send you, yeah, this kid's 6'8" and 300 pounds, and you get there and he's 6'1", 150. And so you want to get your eyes on them to make sure that, you know, what you're recruiting is actually what they say they are. And also to watch them practice, because in today's recruiting, everybody does a highlight film. And highlight films can make really average players look very good. And so getting to watch how they interact with their teammates, do they make their teammates better? How do they take coaching? How fast do they pick things up? Those are things that you can only get by working with them on the field or watching them work with other coaches. So that part was out. So essentially what we've done, and the NC2A has increased what they call the dead period, which means we can't leave and kids cannot come to campus. Generally, this time of the year right now, we have a number of kids come on campus with their families and we show them around. We have summer camps. Can't do that until July 31st. So in lieu of that, we've been setting up Zoom and FaceTime calls with parents and with recruits to give them a good sense of what Stetson's all about. And so each coach has his own geographical area. And then once the best players by position are chosen from there, then that goes to the position coach. The position coach then ranks them. And then based on the ranking, I personally called all those kids. And that number is probably somewhere around 250, something like that we're dealing with right now for next year's class. And the other coaches are texting, calling, and again, trying to find those kids as well. Then you flip back to our team. During this time, we've been allowed to have Zoom meetings. So we did not get to do spring practice. So each position coach twice a week is having anywhere between 40-minute to an hour meetings where we're actually installing the offense and trying to get a jump start on this coming season so we're ready for practice. Because coming into the season, I really feel like offensively we can be very good. And spring was going to be big. The one position that's going to be new is our quarterback position. And Alex Piccarilli, talent-wise, is probably one of the best we've had, but you have to see it. You have to get used to making decisions. You have to get used to making throws when people are coming at you. And then defensively, we're pretty good everywhere with the exception we graduated an All-American linebacker in Colby Duncan. We lost another couple linebackers. And so the linebacker position, which is really the relay station for the whole defense and connects the front with the back end of the defense, that's where we need that experience. And so it's going to be interesting to see how we can gain that experience we should have had in spring, but then go forward to start planning for the new season.
Right. And you touched on it a little bit, but can you give us now an update of where things are now as far as you and the staff are and kind of what you're hoping the plan will be, as long as nothing else changes, which we know this is a very fluid situation that changes just about every day. But where are you guys at right now in terms of planning and preparation for the fall season?
Well, one thing that we try to pride ourselves in, no matter when the day is that we report, we're always prepared for 7 practices. And when we leave, no matter where we're at, we're always prepared for the next 7 practices, regardless of where we're at within the season. So the first thing we did was we had all of our spring plans. So some of those plans converted into this fall plan. And that was the first thing we had to get done. The second thing that we had to get done was to make sure that, okay, if we are able to come in early, and the NC2A has allowed us to come in a little bit earlier from our report date and use that as a time to get our kids ready for practice, essentially. In other words, generally we'll have somewhere between 40 to 70 kids on campus right now working out in anticipation for the August 6th report date. Obviously, they're not on campus now. Next week, we're going to be bringing in our first wave. That's going to be about 45 local kids or kids who have places to stay right here, and they will begin conditioning involuntary workouts for the next couple weeks. The next wave of young men to come in will come in August 3rd, and then we will be able to do some walkthroughs and things like that. And our official first day of practice will actually this year be the day after school starts. The university has decided, in an effort to make sure once we come to campus, we stay at campus, they've started school a week earlier, which is going to be August 13th. And then after Thanksgiving, they're going to send the kids home. And so we're not going to return to campus after Thanksgiving, giving them an opportunity to bring back whoever they're infected around home, a chance to bring that back to campus, which I think is obviously a prudent move. With that said, our first day of practice is going to be the 14th, which is the day after school starts. Now, let's go back. During the time we can do walkthroughs, if we're not in class, we're talking about dividing our team in half. And we're going to do 2 practices, 2 different meetings for 2 reasons. One, if one person gets infected, we certainly don't want that whole team to get infected. The other thing is we don't want to make sure every quarterback is in one drill and get affected that way. So we're going to have to do more planning to make sure that we social distance, so to speak, while we're still practicing. once school starts, though, that's pretty much impossible. And so we're just going to have to make sure that we try to limit the amount of interaction, with the knowledge that we've also got to make sure that we get ready to play football. For example, if we don't tackle until our first game, we're going to be pretty bad tacklers. And frankly, I think that increases the risk of injury. And so we're going to be very diligent in making sure we practice enough to be safe for the physical part of the game, but also try to limit any kind of infectious spread if that should occur among our team. So little things like when we go on the road, who's a roommate? We're going to have to room a starter with a backup, but a defensive lineman maybe with a quarterback, rather than put two quarterbacks together. Because if someone gets sick during the night, you want to have a quarterback with you. So we're going to have to coordinate all that stuff just as a plan to make sure that our team is still functioning, regardless of if someone happens to get a temperature and can't play the next day.
Yeah, it really is incredible, all the little things now that are even going to have to go into planning just to make sure everything hopefully works out for the best. And then switching gears a little bit, we did get a question submitted beforehand as well. This one is, each year the golf tournament is a large fund and fundraiser for the program. And with the current conditions, I'm sure it's a very fluid situation on whether it will continue or not. Are there any other plans or alternative fundraisers planned that we can participate in to help the football team?
Well, to go back to the golf tournament, what we've tried to do, one of the things that we're trying to do is expand our footprint, so to speak, among the alums and friends of the program. And so in lieu of that, generally what happened previously is anytime we had a local golf tournament, all the local vendors and all the local alums play in it. Well, and what ends up happening is that everybody at Stetson wants them to play in that golf tournament, so they kind of get tapped out. So last year we went to a format where we tried to hold the golf tournament the day before the first game, which means that you could come in, and generally it was Labor Day, which was perfect because it was a long weekend. You could come in, play in the golf tournament Friday morning, come watch practice Friday night, then come to the game on Saturday, possibly hang around to land on Sunday, go home on Monday. So we would like to keep that if we can, but I don't know if we're going to be able to. The place we've had it, Aliquot Country Club, has never closed. They've made some changes in how they do things, like everyone gets their own cart. You don't pull the flag out. The ball doesn't go down into the hole. They've made some changes to make sure you can remain socially distant while you're on the course. So that's certainly a possibility. We're waiting to see if, in fact, the 12th is going to be our first game. As far as other fundraising events, generally we reserve those for the spring receptions. But we also we started this last year, we started a fall day of giving. And essentially each team has their own fundraising goal, and there's an appeal sent out, an accelerated fundraiser for each program and the athletics department in general during a 2-week period in the fall. And I have not seen the dates for those, but certainly we'll be contacting everybody for that. And, the fundraising and friend raising, one of the things we've been very blessed with is a growing fan base that has been very generous in what they give us. But the reality of it is, we have to raise roughly $150,000 to $200,000 every year just to make the program go. For example, the nutritional supplements that we have to give our guys to keep their weight up, we're spending about $1,000 a week on that, for example. Shoe dryers for the shoes to make sure that we don't wear them out. Giving kids opportunities to have a Friday night meal together. Some of our guys aren't taking the full 19 meal a week plan, and so that meal that they have with our team on Friday and on Saturday ends up carrying them throughout the weekend. Well, that's funds we have to raise to make that happen. So there will be that fundraiser, there will be that golf tournament, and those are the two things that we're going to be doing. The other unique thing that started a couple years ago is, we have a 150 club, and essentially the 150 club says that you donate $1,000 a year. You can do it monthly or whatever, and we're trying to get 150 people to give $1,000. There's the 150,000 it takes to run the program. The interesting thing is, Jeff Altier has added a level. So if you give it the $3,000 level, we've instituted a tent in the end zone of every game, and you can go down there and be part of it. it's free beverages and free food and all that stuff. And if we're playing really bad, I may come down and start drinking with you. But it's a great opportunity to get right down there on the field and experience the game with the kids. And you get to see that, you know, what looks like a kid that's an average height, you get down and all of a sudden he's like Donald Parham, who just signed with the Chargers at 6'8", 255 pounds. A little bit different game when you're down there, you know, right at ground level.
Absolutely. Good stuff. And then we had another question from Jeff come in here in the chat box. If you can answer to this, what is the testing protocol starting from today, and how does it differ between teams and general students?
I'm assuming they're talking about testing for COVID.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of physical tests. I'm sure he's not asking about the bench press for the normal student. So we're in the process of looking at all CDC. We look at CDC and governmental regulations every day because it's very dynamic and changing. And so we're trying to be the most cost effective while being the most preventative and instituting the highest level of safety that we can. We're going to be taking temperatures every day and sometimes twice a day to make sure that if anyone has a temperature of over 100.4, they're going to be referred back to their room for 24 hours just to make sure it's not a 24-hour bug. If they test again that way, then we're going to send them to the health services, and then the medical experts will take care of the protocol at that point in time. For the normal student, they are not going to be testing temperatures every day. And I think that's one of the reasons where I think actually the football team in some ways may actually be safer. Now listen, I'm going to be the first to admit that with football, we're going to get very close to each other and we're going to be rubbing on each other, and there's no way to prevent that. But I also think that it's the huge thing for us is going to be to educate our guys that it's not college like it used to be anymore. Okay. You need to take care of your teammates, and what you do directly affects yours, your team's, and your teammates' ability to play. If you want to have a season, you need to make sure that you continue to wear your mask, sanitize as much as possible, stay out of bars. I mean, if you look at the LSU incident, they have 30 kids test positive. Well, they traced all that back to them. As soon as the kids got back, they went right down to the bar that night, and they all got infected at that point in time, or at least got exposed to it. We can't do that. And we're going to really call on our kids to be the leaders among the campus and make sure that they talk to our normal students, non-athletic students, that, hey, you need to make sure you take care of each other as well. Because, you know, think about this incoming freshman class. They did not have a high school graduation. They did not have a prom, okay? Our college kids, many of them did not have spring break. So trust me when I tell you that first week they come back, there could be some pent up steam. Although when I was in college, all I did was read scripture, so I didn't know anything about that stuff. But had I done that, it's a bit of a powder keg that we've got to make sure that we manage. I think kids can have fun. I think kids can interact, but we just need to be really smart about how we do that. And hopefully our kids, and I have great confidence in the young men we have, that they will be leaders on the campus and make sure they do take care of each other. But, you know, once you make the decision to come back as a college, you know, they're talking about UCF bringing in 56,000 kids to that campus. It's unrealistic to think we won't have some positive tests. We will. The question is, how are we going to isolate? How are we going to make sure it doesn't spread? And frankly, how quickly they become symptom free. And a lot of the things that are happening, what we don't get reported in the media, when teams show up, Texas shows up 7 tested positive. Well, is that 7 asymptomatic kids that just had it for a long time or not? That's a whole different medical conversation than kids who contracted it as they stepped into the training room that day. And I think we've got to have some common sense. I think we've got to have be very diligent with our kids. And I think we're going to be learning like everyone else. And the beauty of it, since a lot of bigger schools have already brought their kids back, and we're hearing what they're doing and what we're learning from it, we're actually going to benefit by these kids coming in here on the 7th and 8th of July, our 45, to make sure that we have the best practices put in place to assure safety. And if we have to shut down for a couple of weeks, that's going to be part of the deal. I think those are some of the things that you accept when you decide that you're going to have on-campus face-to-face classes. And certainly we want no one to be hurt. We certainly want no one to be, in the hospital or intensive care. That's obviously not our purpose. With that said, we got to make sure that we're not so afraid of doing anything that we shut everything down for no reason. We got to have some common sense as we do it.
Absolutely. And then we had another one come in here in the chat box from Sandy. When you talked about those phases earlier for certain players returning back to campus, when will we know if our son goes back next week or on August 3rd? We are in Florida, but not in DeLand.
Well, here's what we're doing. Tomorrow night, we're having Zoom meetings with all of our players. And at 7 o'clock, at 7:30, we're meeting with all the upperclassmen. And at 9 o'clock, we're meeting with all the freshmen. And they have been told, the players have been told, if parents want to join that with us, they're absolutely welcome to do that. Or if they want to sit and listen, they're absolutely welcome to do that. But generally, it's going to be a situation where if you live close enough that when you get your physical done on the 8th of July, that you're going to stay and work out. If you're going to come in and just get your physical and then go back home for a month, that's not what we want. Because as you know, the COVID testing we do for you when you first walk in will be no good in 4 weeks. So make sure that if you're going to do that. So primarily it's kids who have places that they're going to live off campus, have places to stay close by or can drive in each day and work out. And that's how we kind of arrived at the number of 45. So if you cannot stay in the area and lift and work out the whole time, then it's going to be a situation where you do not come back until August 4th.
Okay, good stuff. And then we'll go ahead and open it up now. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to either drop them in the chat box or unmute yourself and turn your camera on if you'd like. I'm going to drop in the chat box as well very quickly just a link to the Stetson football website. So any breaking news that comes out about schedules or anything in the future, you can surely check the website of the Stetson football team for anything there. And then follow up from Sandy, Coach, do they all have to report July 8th for physicals then?
No. If you should have communicated with your position coach exactly what you're going to do. And if you're coming in, we'll have it all prepared for you. But no, if you can't remain here or don't plan to remain here for at least 2 of the 4 weeks that are going to be our July training periods, then you'll report like at the normal time in August. So not everyone will show up at that time, no.
Okay. Like I said, feel free to drop any other questions or comments you have in the chat box or unmute yourself on here.
That's a good question.
Absolutely.
So if they don't have a place to stay, they can't stay on campus anywhere, right? July 8th,
Correct. The dorms will not be open.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm just confused.
No, that's right. The dorms cannot accommodate anybody until around the 20th of July.
Okay.
Those are only going to be for the international students coming in. Remember, we've been housing roughly 500 international students all this time.
Wow.
So what we've got to do is get them into their permanent rooms. We got to clean up their rooms, sterilize everything, sanitize all that. So to have enough dorms space for the whole football team to show up, that's not going to be able to happen until August 3rd.
Okay. So the date that we need to report is August 3rd.
That's correct.
As of right now. Okay.
And that could move to the 4th depending on when doctors are available to get all the physicals done.
Okay.
But again, we'll communicate all that tomorrow night.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Awesome. While we wait for other questions to come in, one that I was kind of curious about was, so far, we know the schedule had already come out in advance. How many other coaches have you been in discussion with already? Have you talked to all the opponents we were supposed to have this season about just what a potential reschedule or cancellation could look like? Have you been in contact with all these other coaches for this season so far?
Most of the early ones, yes. The NAI, our first game was with Ave Maria. They are part of the NAI Association. That association nationally has pulled the first game on the 5th and said you cannot start playing until the 12th. So that means our August 5th date is out. We're looking for another opponent, one that makes some sense, and some people have put out some feelers. We're seeing if we can work those things out. But right now, if we went to war tomorrow, so to speak, September 12th will be our first game. As far as one of the, I guess, blessings that I've had is I'm the president of the head coaches committee for all of FCS. And I've reached out to every conference representative at that point to ask them how they're handling this deal, how they're going to handle testing, all those types of things. And every one of those, and I've heard back from 3 to this point, the Patriot League, the Big South, and the Southern Conference are all progressing forward as if we're going to play games, and they're planning for that. It's kind of interesting. None of them have the total protocol of what we're going to do when an athlete tests positive completely finished. And the reason is what we're supposed to do changes every week depending on which CDC guidelines you see. And we certainly want to have the most up-to-date and the most effective manner to handle that. So we're kind of holding off. We have some things in mind that we know we can do, but what's the most efficient, cost-effective, and frankly, the safest way to do it? And that will probably not get hammered out until kids maybe even start showing up toward the middle of July, first part of August. But every conference that I have talked to are progressing forward as if we're going through it, and hey, there's going to be something. Now, one of the things that I've had suggested to our presidents is we may want to get the mentality of what I call flex scheduling. So, and here's what I mean. If you go to the playoffs, you're in that first round of the playoffs, you really don't know who your second round opponent's going to be until we find out who wins the games, right? So we need to take that mentality in season. There may be a time where Drake has to shut down their program for 2 weeks, and maybe our opponent has to, and all of a sudden now the opponent Drake had might fit our schedule. So we may have to shove some flexible scheduling in there at the last second to make sure we get that done. Logistically, that's a unique for our league because we play all over the place. But that's a mentality that we may have to make sure we get as many games played as we can. Because I think everyone is committed to try to do everything we can to not change the experience our student athletes have playing college football and going to school here at Stetson. We want to maintain that. We want to make sure that there's as minimal change to that as we can have. And so that's how we're progressing. And so that means we may be a little flexible. The bad part is, we don't know what we're going to do with fans yet. I think our stadium's big enough to do the social distancing. I think masks will be required, and I think we may be taking the temperatures of everybody as they walk in. I saw some new technology in the airports where people just walk by and it automatically takes your temperature as you're walking through the Los Angeles airport to make sure no one gets on the plane with an elevated temperature. So I think there's going to be some new innovative things that come out that hopefully our fans will be able to come in and experience the game, because certainly having a lot of electricity there that comes from the fans certainly makes our players play better. There's no question about that.
Absolutely. And that was actually going to lead into one of our next questions. Miss Susie Macon actually submitted that. Do we know yet what the situation will be at Spec Martin next year as far as spectators are concerned?
No, I do think there'll be a much more restricted access to the field, because one thing that we're going to do is we're going to test our players the night before. We're going to test our players just before they go to bed. We're going to test the players. And when I'm saying testing, I'm talking about thermal tests for temperatures. We're going to test them as they get off the bus for the game. And we're going to do the same thing with the coaches, the trainers, the officials. The opposing team is going to have to do that. And anyone that frankly is on the field that has a chance to come in contact with either team is going to be tested at that point. And obviously, we're not going to ask our kids to wear masks, but we're looking into research about some shields put over the helmets so that we can modify, any kind of droplets or anything coming from off your head to hit that. The problem is the heat in Florida. If you have that face mask all covered up, one, it fogs over, and two, your head is one of your best mechanisms to dissipate heat. And so if you get that helmet all enclosed in, there's a little bit of a concern of overheating. That's my concern for it. So I know Rydell has just come out with one, Shutt's come out with one, an extended mask. And so we're looking into those things to see if they have any effect on preventing the spread of the disease. The nice thing is I saw where one company now is promoting a cleaner agent that actually kills the virus for up to 30 days after it's been applied. Well, that's a game changer when you're talking about hitting sleds, keeping the balls sanitized, all that stuff that goes on out there. Our pumpers where we're trying to make sure that, only one person's drinking from one area and it's not carried over. If those, and I really believe that science is going to start catching up. It's already started to, it's going to catch up even more as we go forward. And obviously we want to implement as many of those technological changes as we can to make our game as normal as we can, but keep it safe.
Absolutely. And then that kind of led into another follow-up question there from Colleen. We just talked about social distancing rules at games, but also how it can affect tailgating or even Hatter Walk if we have to adjust that moving forward too.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I'll be honest. I hadn't really thought about the Hatter Walk, but tailgating absolutely could affect and how we handle that as well. You know, it's going to be a new normal until the science all catches up. And you know, I just heard today where Fauci indicates that they're going to have, he's pretty confident they're going to have a vaccine by the end of December. And so, you know, my hope is that someone beats them to the punch and has something ready to go. Now, again, in the meantime of that, the nice part is our population has probably less than a 2% mortality rate from this disease. And so, when you're dealing with a healthy 18 to 22-year-old, overall, you're pretty confident that if unfortunately they do contract the disease, that the effect on them is going to be much less. And I actually heard Governor DeSantis's press conference before I came on here, where his health experts were talking about doctors in the Orlando healthcare system are talking about the severity of the cases that they're getting now are much, much less than they first did. People who are coming in, they were talking about when it first started, there were 250 people in the hospital, and now there's only 2. And the need to hospitalize people who are testing positive is much less than it was before. The acuity, they call it, of the disease is much less ferocious, so to speak. So again, I think all things are pointing in the right direction. Shoot, we can hit a glitch and there could be a huge spike, and we may have to backtrack and you know, start over a little bit. There's going to be the glitches that are going to happen. But again, I think if we take the intent that we're going to try to make life as normal as possible, and frankly, you know, when you're talking about football, think about this. While it's not here at Stetson, but there was a study done in Sports Illustrated about the 2014 LSU Tiger team. And the football team in that school year profited $56 million for LSU athletics. All of the sports combined lost $23 million. So there's a heavy financial incentive to make sure that we have a football season. Here at Stetson, you know, the tuition dollars that our kids generate probably up and around the $4.5 to $5 million range. And so certainly we don't want to risk any unnecessary risk, but the flip side of it, what football does for Stetson and for all these other schools that are our size is pretty substantial. So I think everyone's highly motivated to see what best practices are and how we can go forward to make sure, again, that experience for our kids is available.
Absolutely. And then more questions that are coming in. And obviously a lot of these questions are just part of the fluid situation that we're dealing with. So
Sure.
not really going to be a certain or set answer, I would say, right now for everything. But another one from Lynn, what about the effect on season tickets and early bird deadlines, et cetera, things like that for the season?
I don't really know the answer to that. Frankly, I've been so focused on just what I needed to get our team ready. But if you call, I think it's hatters.com tickets or whatever, you can find out. Dan Schubert is the guy's name. Dan Schubert is the young man's name who's handling all the tickets. And I know that, you know, when we had to cancel the baseball season last year, many people just kept their tickets and rolled them into season tickets for this year for football and other things. You know, again, as this process develops and as we get some kind of indication of what the season is going to look like, our ticket office is going to be pretty flexible with that. But I don't want to speak for them because I really don't know exactly how all things are going to be undertook, and I don't know if they know exactly until we know exactly how many home games we're going to have. You know exactly what the pricing is going to be and how everything's going to go with that as well. But I do know that they will be flexible, and it's going to be an adjustment as we go forward.
Right. I know this past spring, I won't try to speak to what they might be planning for the fall if we get to that point, but I know this past spring, when they did have to cancel the remainder of the baseball and softball seasons for those ticketed sports, they did offer, you could either get your credit back for the games that weren't played, you could put your credit towards next season's tickets, or you could choose to make your remaining balance be credited towards a program's fund. So I know those were the options, or you, like I said, you got your refund back for the games not played. So those were the options this past spring. And I know Dan and the rest of the staff in the ticket office will obviously be very flexible to whatever everybody needs. And then Dennis, you can go ahead and unmute yourself if you'd like. I know you mentioned you had a few comments, so feel free.
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted. So first of all, I'd like to thank Roger for always being very open and candid about what's going on with the program and school and things like that. So appreciate, Roger, you taking your time to share all this with us. If there's a season, I would like to invite everybody here on this call to come to San Diego to watch the Hatters play the University of San Diego Toreros. So those that were here 2 years ago, we had a really, really great, fun, big party beforehand. So we intend on doing the same thing again. Every year I go to all the University of San Diego basketball games, and every year they bring the football team out on the center court at one of the timeouts, and they have the trophy there. I make sure I get a picture of the trophy, and I send it to Roger and said, when the hell are you going to win one of these? So with that said, Roger, what are you going to do this year to beat University of San Diego?
Here's what we're doing. In our testing kits, we're going to have little, it's kind of like the guy in Caddyshack that had that little knife that he could just cut the Achilles heel. He'll never play golf again. Well, these guys, we may take some brass knuckles or something and have them taped in as COVID preventers and takes us. I mean, San Diego's has a great program, and they're the only program that we have not beaten since we've resurrected the program. And so there's added motivation for that. But they've been good, and they incidentally, they had their spring practice way before all this happened. They actually did it in January. So I got to tell you, there's no person on our team more motivated to not have that freaking picture sent to me every freaking year than I am. So trust me when I tell you, if I got to get a sniper in the press box, we may have to do some work in there to make sure that we get them handled. But it's a great challenge, and Coach Lindsay's done a fabulous job. They're the team now that we're trying to emulate and become. And I like the team we have returning if we can pick up where we left off and make up for what we lost time in spring practice. I like this team coming back a lot.
Thank you.
And thanks, Dennis. I really appreciate that, though. Please send another picture as fast as you can.
Yes, thank you, Dennis. And I know we had some other questions come in, like we talked about the tickets, and then even dorm assignments for players going into the season. That's just something that it's so fluid right now. There's so many moving parts. I know our housing team has had to do kind of a revamp of how they're going to assign rooms for this year. So anything that anybody might have requested or anything beforehand, I know they've just had to kind of go in and basically, as we all have, kind of hit the reset button and figure some things out. So I know that's a lot of the questions that parents have as far as students coming back to campus. And I know those are questions that all those teams are still trying to get answered right now. And try and get
If I can add something to that, Alex. I mean, we've also got to provide places for kids to be quarantined, and we've got to take so many rooms offline to make sure that we can accommodate that to keep the rest of the population safe. If you go on our website, you'll see that Stetson has actually contributed or put up $3.2 million for return grants to help our students get back and handle. There's another $100,000 in COVID funds that are out there. One of our former players had 3 family members pass away from COVID and could not attend their funeral, could not be part of it. And Stetson awarded him roughly $2,500 to help he and his family deal with this disease. And so it's hit very home and very closely to the football for the football family as well. But I think Stetson has done a phenomenal job, and I would give Dr. Libby a lot of credit and her team a lot of credit for finding ways to have compassion for the students and their families as everybody's going through this. To this point, we're on track to have a record freshman class. We're still a little bit down in the transfer area, in the transfer realm right now, but we have a chance to put together almost a record class in spite of what's going on with the pandemic. And I think that speaks volumes to what Wendy's done here over the last 10 years. She'll be stepping down next week. Chris Rolkey will be taking over. Really excited about Chris, but I need to take this time just to sing Wendy's accolades a little bit for having the courage to bring back the football program and stick with it through some criticism. And, there's 5 new buildings on campus. We just finished a $218 million campaign. She just got the largest gift in the history of Stetson. That's pretty damn good presidency as far as I'm concerned. So she should be given given accolades for that. And while we'll certainly miss her and want her to have, her and Richard to have a great retirement, I don't think she's going away, because I think the university's actually hired her as a consultant to help with the transition for Dr. Rolkey as he steps in. And Dr. Rolkey, I'm ecstatic about, because, you know, he was a former athlete. He played basketball at Wesleyan. He played baseball there. He's been, if you look at his Facebook page, you know, his daughters are athletes. His wife is an athlete. And so I think that he's going to understand how athletics can provide that experience for all students at Stetson, and frankly, can be that unifier among our alums as well. And certainly we've experienced that in football, and a lot of thanks goes to the people on this call right now for what you've done to help us run the program and get the program up to, you know, the last time we had 2 winning seasons was 1950. Now it could be the fact we didn't have a team for a long time too. That's part of it as well. But again, to build the program from scratch and be able to have 2 winning seasons, put 5 people in the professional ranks of playing football, and also have the top 5 business students in the last 6 years, pretty remarkable. You know, last year, and again, I'm tooting the horn of the football program, but we had 60 out of 110 kids make the academic All Pioneer Football League team. So our kids do it both. You know, they come here to be the best they can be in everything they do. And if they don't want to be that, they're either not here very long, or we modify their behavior, so to speak, to make sure that they do. I'll tell you, I got to tell you a story. So we had the same kid who was a linebacker for us last year, calls me last week and says, "Hey coach, I got a job." And this is the young man who had 3 family members die of COVID. And he says, "I got a job." He goes, "You know what, coach, if I play this right, I could be making 6 figures. I can make between 100 to 150,000 in a year and a half." And I said, that's awesome. I'm so proud. Now you understand, this is a kid from a place in Mississippi who still has dirt floors and still has outhouses. Okay, he comes from absolutely nothing. He goes, "Coach, I got this opportunity, but I'm calling you to thank you for this and to let you know I'm going to hire Stetson football players. I want to build my team with Stetson football players." That's what this is all about. Listen, I know I'm measured on wins and losses, but I think I'm even more measured for the type of product we turn out. And that is a classic story where Stetson and the opportunity we gave him is going to change. It's going to be, as Brian Young, my defensive coordinator, a generational change for his whole family. That's what this is about. I get emotional. I apologize. That's who I am.
No, it's great. And I love those stories because it really does show that, you know, what each person, whether it's a coach or a staff member currently or an alum or what a student can do on campus right now, how any of us can have that effect on somebody and kind of make them feel inspired to do something like that. It's great. It's really awesome. And I'll say we are super excited for Dr. Rolkey to end up getting here and joining us in the VIP tent at a football game so he can be down in the end zone screaming at the opposing fans with us.
Well, here's the deal. He's been quarantined for 2 weeks here, so he might be leading the charge when those freshmen come in to have the party. I don't know. I didn't say that. If you say I said that, I'll deny it. I hope your phones are turned off. But I think he's really excited to get going, and I think he brings a great level of enthusiasm and energy. And I think that's going to be readily recognized very soon.
Absolutely. We did have another question come in while we were talking earlier from Colleen. Are you concerned about any current players not returning to campus at this time right now?
You know, you're always concerned about that. Usually we'll have roughly 2 to 3 kids who will decide not to come back, regardless if we're in a pandemic or not. That'll be because of finances. That'll be because they've decided they just don't want to play football anymore, or they may just decide that they want to go someplace else. And so that's not uncommon. As far as right now, we've had 2 kids who've indicated they will not return to the program. Next year, we're going to have actually 133 kids in the program. So we'll have 110 we invite back to camp, and then we've got roughly 22 kids, who want to be part of Division I football, but for whatever reason, maybe they're injured, maybe we got on them late. They're going to have an opportunity to come and help us in different ways. They won't suit up, but they'll be managers, filmers, assistant coaches, things like that until January, and then they'll join the team like that. And that's another 22 young men who we have an opportunity to utilize from the standpoint, watch them grow, and they can contribute to the Stetson experience as well. So it goes beyond just the 110 young men we just have in fall camp.
Absolutely. And I'll go ahead and open it up the last few minutes here before we wrap up for any last minute questions or comments from anyone. I am going to drop a few more things in the chat box that I mentioned earlier. I'm going to put in our webinar interest form. That'll be the first link you see. Like I said earlier, if you have a few minutes to just take the time and fill that out, that really helps us. We look at that every week, and it helps us kind of determine and build out any of the future content coming out of our office. I'm going to put a link to the Stetson football page in there again. And then the second link that you'll see in there is for our next Coffee and Conversation event, July 14th. That'll be a Tuesday. It'll be the same time, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We're actually going to have Jeff Taylor, the Director of Broadcasting at Stetson, join us for one of these events. And he's going to talk about the broadcast program as a whole, the events they take care of, and then the partnership that they have with ESPN and what current students at Stetson can do to get involved with ESPN broadcast productions. So we're very excited to have Jeff come on in a few weeks. I'm going to drop those links in the chat box now. And then, like I said, we'll go ahead, and if anybody has any final questions or comments or thoughts before we close it up, feel free to drop those in the chat or unmute yourself and share with us whatever you'd like.
Hey, Coach, Don Jordan here. How you doing?
I'm good, Don.
Quick question. I know obviously this is tough on all of us. Any thoughts about being an incoming parent, an incoming freshman with Jackson, about getting parents together again, since we had kind of the virtual Hatters Day and trying to do anything, but again, dealing with the C-19 and social distancing, I can understand it could be tough.
Well, the answer is yes. And I'm usually we started off with, our report date normally has all the freshmen coming in and the parents here. And I usually take about an hour to an hour and a half and just kind of have an opening conversation with all the parents at that time. I still want to be able to do that, but if we're coming in waves, it may not be possible. We may have to do multiple ones of those. Right. I'm considering putting together a Zoom situation right now with all the parents once we get all the class settled and understand exactly how we're going to handle things together prior to the season as well, so you can have an opportunity to meet each other via Zoom, to communicate with each other, and then have an idea of how we can kind of coalesce around the game and all the events around the game. So my hope is to have that put together probably by the middle to late part of July, Don. And that way, what I hate doing is giving information that ends up not being accurate down the road. So I like to kind of get my ducks in a row and make sure that when I tell you the deal, it's pretty solidified that you can count on this is what's going to happen, if that makes sense. But I see that happening as we get closer to the 23rd, 24th of July, that way, because we'll still have about 3 weeks to get everything ready to go into plan at that point. And I still want to make sure, our first games with Louisiana College, we just spoke to their coaches last week. They're ready to go. I tried to get them actually to move up a week so we could maybe bring in another opponent for the 12th. They can't do that right now. So, but they're set and ready to go. And so we're proceeding as if everything's full go right now.
No, that's understandable.
Keep on me about it. As you know, you have my cell phone. Shoot me a text or whatever. My hope is, it's interesting. I don't function very well without a calendar. Okay, right now we don't have a calendar. We don't have plans of what's going on, exactly how it's going to work. And it's funny. I've been talking to a couple of my coaches, and I'm just really irritable right now. My wife doesn't want to be around me. I got to handcuff myself to a chair so I don't choke somebody sometimes, but. Yeah. Once things get a little more solidified and that we're going to have a season and we know exactly how we're going to make sure we react if there happens to be something happen, I'll feel a whole heck of a lot better. We've got the thing is we've got numerous plans out there. I just kind of need to know, we need to narrow it down to which 2 plans we're going to go in with and then make the adjustment when we have to.
Well, I know Jackson's enjoyed it, and with Coach Clayton and the Zoom meetings, 4 days a week. In fact, he was coming down to say hello, but he says, I got to do something for Coach. So obviously he's reading Extreme Leadership or doing something he's working on, but he's enjoyed it.
Remind him to remind me, he better have that book read and that study guide filled out too before he shows up.
Yeah. Oh, he knows.
Good.
Yeah, because he knows who's going to pay the penalty, and it won't be him.
It won't be him, but there will be someone sweating that day. I'll promise you that.
Yeah.
They'll have it done. Yep.
Yep. That's what team's all about. But we've enjoyed it, just kind of sitting back watching him grow. And as you alluded to, nothing's happened in high school for Dr. Phillips. no plans for graduation ceremony. He's done. He's checked out. You know, he finished strong. He's checked out. He's ready to get up there.
Good. I think a lot of our kids are. And so I think once they open up the floodgates, we're going to have everybody back here as fast as we can get them back.
Yeah. Oh, God bless for what you do. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
And
I do have to give one shout out. Someone from my alma mater here, Marty Fies on the, I see his name on here. Notre Dame in the house, baby. Love it. So hope everything's going well out there in Nebraska. Nice.
all right, well, with that,
Nebraska, by the way, has the lowest unemployment rate right now and the lowest COVID positive testing right now. Thank you very much, Nebraska. Of course, they're not testing the cattle and the horses, so that could be a problem. Maybe they get a few more positive tests if they did that. I'm not sure.
That's enough, Roger.
Easy, Marty. Well, I want to thank everyone for being here. It's amazing how when we do these Zoom things, not only with alums, but especially with the players, how much better I feel just to have the interaction. And certainly our success over the last couple years, at least in the win column, is directly attributed to all the support that you guys give. And it really is a big deal to help us give these kids the best college football experience that we can. So I really appreciate all that you do for us, and we'll keep you informed as well as we can. And there's going to be some battlefield adjustments. There's going to be some glitches, but we're going to get through this thing, and I think we're going to come out stronger on the other side.
absolutely.
Coach Stephen, I just want to say thank you so much. You're always the calming voice in the storm. You had us from the first meeting that you spoke at Nestor DeArmas house, what was it, 7, 8 years ago now. So whatever you need, you can call on us. I'm sure this whole group on this call, and there's so many more that are just waiting to hear, what you need from us. And I know the first answer is usually money, and that's okay too. That you got to ask or you don't get it. So just know that we're all here, just waiting for you to tell us what you need from us. So we just appreciate you, and go Hatters, and we're looking forward to the season. Whatever happens, we're behind you all the way.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. One of the things, last story, and then I'll let Alex get out of here. But, last May, I won't say previous May, we had an alumni reception in Atlanta. And we had a really cool place, rooftop bar overlooking the city. I mean, it couldn't have been better. And we had probably 25 alums show up to that, along with a few parents. And it was interesting because 2 alums, one's name is Ed Cooney, who actually owns Affinity Bank in Atlanta, was starting a new bank. And it just so happens that a guy named Christian Koch, if you watched Hat Chats, he was one of our first hosts, had never met Ed, but his investment firm is a big firm that invests in banks. And long story short, their interaction at this Stetson alumni reception, Christian is now the largest investor in Ed's bank. That's what this thing should do. That's Stetson working at its finest. We should be helping each other, and everybody gets better. Student to coach, coach to alums, alum to alums. That's what we're building here. It's not just about what happens on campus. It's how we all go out and make the world better, and we can help each other do that. Everyone from this school is driven, successful, and frankly, loves to help people from what I've found. And so let's keep capitalizing on that. Those of you who've offered our kids internships and jobs, I can't thank you enough. That's how it should work. Stetson should take care of Stetson first. And so when we have these alumni receptions out there, please feel free to come join us, come free to meet people. And you usually find that you find something in common with somebody, and all of a sudden, an acquaintance turns into a relationship, and then a relationship turns into productivity, and then all of a sudden we're helping a bunch of different people. And so that's how we make the change. So again, thank you all for everything you've done, and hopefully we'll be able to actually talk football, like who covers the tight end in the flat once in a while once the thing's over, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. We can't wait. And just to echo and kind of give a shameless plug for Coach and his football program. When I worked in the athletic department here at Stetson, Roger was one of the best people that I got to work with there. And since moving to the alumni office, I've seen firsthand now, he's a great partner for our office. We look forward to continuing to be a great partner for his team and him and his program and all that. And we can't thank him and all of you enough for joining us today. I know everything's crazy right now, but I appreciate everybody taking the time during the day to just join us for an hour and catch up, connect, talk some football. Hopefully we get to do that a lot this fall. But again, thank you all for joining, and thank you, Coach, for taking the time today.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, we hope everybody has a great rest of the day and week, and we look forward to seeing you all soon. And go Hatters.
Go Hatters.
Thanks, Roger.
You're welcome. Thank you.